Well, it seems that Vance Boelter, that man who murdered the Minnesota lawmakers,
well, his wife has filed for divorce.
Viva Frei, former Montreal litigator turned current Florida rumbler, in my home office doing a follow-up on the Vance Boelter story. For those of you who don't recall, Vance Boelter was that lunatic out of Minnesota who murdered Minnesota lawmakers, who had a list in his car, who claimed that Tim Walz told him to do it for reasons which only make sense in the mind of a psychopath. Now, the story has sort of fallen out of the news cycle, except when Democrats want to bring it up to somehow make some comparison between the assassination of Charlie Kirk and the murder of those Minnesota lawmakers,
as if anyone on the right rejoiced when those lawmakers were murdered.
The story fell out of the news cycle as soon as it made it into the news cycle because it didn't quite fit the narrative that well, but they bring it up every now and again today, Good Morning America is bringing up the story to try to make Trump look bad for his response to a question as to whether or not he's going to contact Governor Tim Walz.
Here's what President Trump told reporters when asked if he was going to speak to Minnesota Governor Mike Walz about the tragedy.
I don't really call him. He appointed this guy to a position. I think the governor of Minnesota is so whacked out. I'm not calling him. Why would I call him? I could call him and say, hi, how you doing? The guy doesn't have a clue. He's a mess. So, I could be nice and call him, but why waste time?
From an AOL article, Minnesota shooting's latest witness recalls moments she spotted suspect. Now, this article is dated June 17, 2025, but for some reason when I go to the Google search engine, it says the story was from 29 minutes ago. Bottom line, it summarizes what happened in that shooting incident. Vance Boelter allegedly had been tracking a number of lawmakers for months, finding out where they lived, tracking them, and then he went and tried to kill a few. He was apparently prepared to go on a lengthy rampage, and after having shot Melissa Hortman and her husband, he was apprehended thanks to some witnesses calling in. Wendy Thomas was on the phone with her father when she saw someone in a field in Green Isle, Minnesota on Sunday night. Thomas watched as the person reached a culvert and squatted, she told Minneapolis ABC affiliate KSTP. Quote, I was like, Dad, that's somebody, end quote. She told the outlet, quote, he said, hang up and call somebody, end quote. Moments later, Thomas was flagging down a member of law enforcement, she said, and telling them about the man she'd seen out by the culvert. What followed was the arrest of the suspected Minnesota gunman, Vance Boelter, whom local, state, and federal law enforcement have been trying to locate for about 43 hours. For those of you who don't remember or never knew in the first place, because these stories come and go with the news cycle, Vance Boelter alleged in a letter written to the FBI that he was the shooter and that he was told by Tim Walz to do it. From the Washington Post, alleged Minnesota shooter confessed to killings in letter to FBI director. Vance Boelter allegedly claimed he had been, quote, approached, end quote, by Governor Tim Walz and ordered to kill the state's 2 U.S. senators because, quote, Tim wants to be senator, end quote. July 15, 2025. In the letter, Boelter allegedly wrote that he had been secretly trained by the U.S. military and had participated in secret overseas missions, quote, all in the line of what I thought was doing right and was in the best interest of the United States, end quote. The letter claimed he had been, quote, approached, end quote, by Governor Tim Walz, a Democrat, and ordered to kill the state's 2 U.S. senators, Amy Klobuchar and Tina Smith, because, quote, Tim wants to be senator, end quote. Asked for a comment on the letter, a spokesman for Walz said, quote, the tragedy continues to be deeply disturbing for all Minnesotans, end quote. Now, that's not really an answer to the question or a comment on the statement, although I do not actually believe that Tim Walz approached this psychopath and asked him to kill Amy Klobuchar because Tim Walz wanted to be senator. The man is a psychopath
doing psychopathic things.
That being said, how long this man had been a psychopath planning psychopathic things and with the knowledge of whom, we don't know. In the wake of the shooting, it was reported that his wife was found in a car with $10,000 cash, guns, and passports, and now we're sort of understanding why, because she's filed for divorce, which you might not have heard because that sort of went under the radar as well. From CBS News, wife of man accused in deadly Minnesota lawmaker shootings files for divorce. The wife of the man charged in the deadly politically motivated shootings of Minnesota lawmakers in June has filed for divorce, court documents show. Vance Boelter, 58, faces federal and state murder and attempted murder charges in connection with the deaths of House Speaker Emerita Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark, and the shooting of State Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette on June 14 in their respective Twin Cities homes. Jenny Lynn Boelter filed a petition for, quote, dissolution with child, end quote, in Sibley County earlier this month, according to court documents. The official grounds of the divorce are unknown, as Judge Amber Donnelly granted her request to seal, quote, all current and future documents filed in this matter, end quote, which are to be treated as confidential. Not to be too conspiratorial, but nothing is going to further conspiracy theories and conspiratorial thinking than sealing court documents. But alas, it's divorce, and it's pretty much par for the course from what I understand, or at least relatively common in divorce proceedings, especially divorce proceedings involving children, so we might never know the details of what's going on here until well into the future. Nearly 2 weeks after the fatal shootings, Jenny Boelter released a statement through her attorney saying her husband's actions were, quote, a betrayal of everything we hold true as tenets of our Christian faith, end quote. Quote, we are absolutely shocked, heartbroken, and completely blindsided. This violence does not at all align with our beliefs as a family, end quote, Jenny Boelter wrote. Quote, we are appalled and horrified by what occurred, and our hearts are incredibly heavy for the victims of this unfathomable tragedy, end quote. In the wake of the shooting, you will recall that Jenny Boelter and the children were caught in a car with other family members, cash, guns, and passports, and these are the details surrounding that element of this wild story. According to federal court documents, Jenny Boelter and some of her children left Green Isle by vehicle just hours after the shooting. Law enforcement contacted her by phone and arranged to meet her at a gas station close to her location at the time, which was about 150 miles away from Green Isle, near Lake Mille Lacs. That's actually French for Lake of 1,000 Lakes. An FBI special agent noted in an affidavit that Jenny Boelter had 2 guns, passports, and about $10,000 in cash in her vehicle. They noted she was, quote, cooperative, end quote, with law enforcement, but initially, quote, was not forthcoming with knowledge of her husband being involved in something serious, end quote, after revealing Vance Boelter messaged her earlier that day to, quote, take the kids and go to her parents' house, and that there may be people with guns coming to the house, end quote. It's pretty wild. You gotta wonder for how long her husband had been clearly psychotic, clearly deranged, planning this, whether or not she knew anything, whether or not there were any indications of it. By all accounts, she doesn't seem to have known very much about it. She was found with cash, guns, and a passport because she thought people were coming to get her, not knowing what her husband had done, allegedly, but it's really bizarre. Jenny Boelter also told law enforcement in that meeting she and her husband were, quote, preppers, end quote, meaning they, quote, prepare for major or catastrophic incidents, end quote. Soon after the shootings, investigators found more than 50 firearms and a tub of ammunition in their Green Isle home. Jenny Boelter has not been charged with any crimes and noted in her statement on June 27 she, quote, fully cooperated with investigators and responded to their every request, end quote. Now, I'm not the most proficient with firearms, and I don't know if they refer to a tub of ammunition as a container of ammunition or if there was literally a bathtub of ammunition, but I do know that people who are into guns go through a lot of ammunition, so having massive amounts of ammunition is not that wildly out of the ordinary. I would like to know the medical history of Vance Boelter to determine if he was manic, bipolar, schizophrenic, psychotic, and if the wife had any inkling as to any mental issues with her husband, because I don't think something like this happens out of the blue, or at the very least without the knowledge or some indication, some suspicion of the people closest to the man who goes on and murders lawmakers. But alas, she has not been charged with the crime, and I'm not suggesting anything, just the latest news that many of us might not have been aware of is that she filed for divorce. Understandably so, I would say, under the circumstances. Quote, we are grateful for the diligent and professional efforts of the authorities to fully investigate these crimes, end quote, Jenny Boelter wrote. Quote, we thank law enforcement for apprehending Vance and protecting others from further harm. Vance Boelter could face the death penalty if convicted on federal murder charges. No hearings have been scheduled in Jenny Boelter's divorce case. Her attorney declined WCCO's request for a comment. Note, the original air date of the video attached to this article is August 15, 2025. What video was that? I'll play it for you in a second after you make sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Make sure notifications are turned on so you get notified when I put out a video. But most importantly, just exercise, eat healthy, sunlight, talk to people in real life, and let's watch that video now. Now you know your vlog. Peace out. Booyah.
We do have a heads up for you this morning, though, and this is going to impact your traffic for this weekend. 94 will be closed both directions. This is going to be between 35W and 280. We've mapped out that red stretch there for you. This is the final weekend closure for this months-long project. Remember, that's that bottleneck effect that you've been dealing with. So this is going to be closed through 5 a.m. Monday. And here's the good news come Monday morning. All the lanes of 94 will be open because the State Fair opens next week, so they want to open that up. So that's good news. All the lanes will reopen Monday on 94 between 280 and 35W.